shining a light on the women creating impact, leading organizations, and mission-focused strategic programs across the federal technology and consulting community. This is Impact. I am being joined today by Mika Cross, the CEO at Strategy at Work. Mika, thank you for hopping on with me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited about our conversation today.
Yes, so am I. First, tell me a little bit about what it is you do at Strategy at Work.
Yeah, so we are a small veteran-owned, service-disabled veteran-owned small business. I am the founder, CEO, and I did so really out of a passion and my purpose for creating better workplaces and better ways of working. So any sector, any industry, from mom and pop startups to academia, nonprofit, and of course, public sector government, because I am best known as a federal and government workplace expert after spending 2 decades of my career across the federal government in 7 different agencies, including the intelligence community. And I am a proud Army veteran. I served twice, actually, both as an enlisted soldier and as a commissioned officer. So I bring all that expertise, those insights, those experiences from working inside government, inside uniformed military services, across the civil service, and also in private industry to help organizations thrive, whether it be through team building, leadership development, assessments, and strategic engagements to help create bright, thriving, booming workplaces that drive results.
Wow, that's super needed right now, too.
It is very
So,
much.
talking about all your experience, is there a specific experience or event that you believe helped play a significant role in steering you down your current path?
It's funny, it's probably a simplistic answer, but I think being a mom, quite frankly, and being a single mom at that, having to navigate that experience while also juggling a career while I was in uniform on active duty, working in organizations like the United States intelligence community with a top secret clearance where there wasn't as much geographic flexibility as there could be navigating life and career as a single mother. And then also parenting my youngest, who early on had some different abilities. It was a really scary time. We didn't quite know what was going on when he was just a little guy in terms of screening, assessments, and then setting him up for success to thrive in a learning environment helped me apply that also to thinking about what the workplace needs to do to welcome and include and encourage achieving your best, regardless of how, when, and where we work.
And do you think things are moving in a good direction right now since you've started doing all of this?
I've been doing this for so long, and one thing I can say is I have seen a lot of push and pull over the years.
Right.
Back in the day in the federal government, we used to call remote work and hybrid work flexi place. And from there, it transitioned to telework, telecommuting, remote work, virtual work, distributed work. And now we're seeing hybrid and all of the things. There's a lot going on in the press right now that might give the appearance that remote and hybrid work is actually going away with these very strict return to office mandates, especially in the nation's largest employer like the federal government. When in fact, the reality is that the very best employers around the world are still embracing a variety of strategic flexibilities. Quite frankly, a very small percentage of roles in the world can be done fully remote from anywhere.
Right.
The majority of jobs can, though, be done in a flexible way, whether that is a flexible work shift, a flexible work schedule, 410s, seasonal, intermittent gig work, you name it. I have
Mhm.
seen it all. And the very best employers that create cultures of engagement and productivity that drive results for the bottom line, but also their customers, also get it right for their employees, regardless of what industry or occupation they're in.
Right. So now, do you have a leader or mentor that you think helped lead you along your way?
Well, I have so many, I probably can't even count them now because I am no spring chicken. But there's a couple of things that stand out from mentors that I have had. when I first started speaking. I was very young and early in my career. I wasn't necessarily junior, but I didn't have a lot of public speaking expertise. And so when I was asked to do things like training, keynotes, conference presentations, I often would lean on my mentors for either bringing them in to tag team something or to give advice. And I remember when I left the intelligence community, I was asked to come speak at a Women in Intelligence Summit. And I pitched this world-renowned expert who was in my network to come do a training session with me. We were going to co-lead a session. And it was very clear that the conference event planners really just wanted me. And my mentor told me that too. She said, it's evident that they want you to come speak. They are interested in your expertise. And my recommendation is that you sit back and step into that confident role because that's where they are seeing you. And she gave me the confidence and encouragement to sort of go out in front and overcome my fears and really step into my confident role of being an expert in that area.
Okay, so now looking at moments in your career that may have changed your style, do you have a moment that helped create your leadership style and your approach and how you approach leadership?
I have to say, probably after 9/11, the intelligence community at large was really undergoing a large scale transformation in changing the way that we did business across the federal government, but specifically for the IC. And it was a matter of national security. It was a matter of criticality at that time. And it included, you know, chopping down stove pipes and making sure that there were cultures of collaboration, sort of figuring out how to incentivize knowledge sharing and expertise sharing, not only within the organization, but across a community. And I was really intrigued by that early on, even though I was a human capital strategist at the time, doing HR and workforce policy and that sort of technical kind of role. There were opportunities for me to volunteer, and I did. I participated in a lot of pilot projects and pilot programs across the intelligence community that gave me a really deep, rich insight in terms of how our human capital and workforce policies and programs were affecting our frontline workers, our mission critical roles, those senior intelligence analysts, senior intelligence officers, Farsi speakers, UFAC, underground, you name it, human, all of the things. So it really broadened the aperture for me to understand, hey, what you do on a daily basis really matters in a critical way for supporting people to be able to bring their best to the workplace in these extremely important positions and roles. So I think that experience, working inside the intelligence community, even on the workforce and HR side, on the people side, really helped shape my leadership philosophy in terms of making sure that you step outside of your comfort zone, sort of applying that user-centric, human-centric design philosophy of understanding what your work does to support mission critical operations, really in any business line. And I took that with me wherever I went throughout my career. And to this day, I still kind of apply those holistic philosophies, those change management philosophies. And I have become a workforce transformation expert, actually.
That's great. That's great. So now a lot of people are working on increasing government efficiency and everything sort of shuffling right now. What are
Yeah.
some specific strategies that you believe can better support the advancement of women in leadership roles within the federal workforce?
Um, I think this is a really important conversation to have, specifically at a time where there's certain terminology that is not
Mhm.
permitted anymore. The DEI,
Yep.
holistic philosophy and efforts are being reshaped and restructured and somewhat taken away in some perspectives. So it's like, how can we be aware? And I think my best piece of advice is to stay up to date on the workforce trends that are affecting any workplace, not just your
Right.
own specific one, and to lean on the data and facts in terms of what history says are impeding or supporting, for instance, women in the workplace, what insights can you glean from reliable sources in terms of attrition, promotion, pay, and then to also stay up to date in terms of what specific demographics of workers are looking for in the workplace, especially right now with so much tumultuous change and uncertainty. It is important, especially considering different demographics when you're talking about different generations and what they
Yeah.
expect from their employer. These are going to be really critical skills at any level of leadership, because whether or not you're in HR, whether or not you're on the front line, whether or not you're in finance or tech or operations, you're going to need to be able to manage people. And the better you're able to engage them, which drives strong performance outcomes, and retain them, the better you are to have continuity in your roles, even when organizations are undergoing change and transformation.
Now, like you said, if some terminology is not allowed to be said and things are being shuffled around, what steps do you think are necessary to accelerate the progress and keep a more inclusive environment, even though everything's happening the way it is right now?
Well, I think focusing on the people, people as a demographic. And so let me give you some examples. How many of us have ever been in a meeting where someone else might have interrupted us,
Like every time.
right? How many of us may have experienced a time where an idea or suggestion was taken and given credit to someone else, potentially?
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
How often has there been conflict in the workplace? This idea of allyship, which was really strongly tied to DEI, really just kind of goes along with human nature. Could we apply not the golden rule, but the platinum rule? And so sometimes it takes requiring us to take a step back and thinking to ourselves, whose voices did we not hear from? Maybe even thinking about our own preference. So I won't use the word bias, but preference in terms of who's the closest to you in your circle, in your work circle. Am I delegating work specifically to those people and primarily to those people, which could lead to burnout even? And am I giving opportunities in terms of high level projects, high visibility, those sorts of things, shadowing, mentorship to other people that aren't in my intimate, close proximity on a daily basis, whether that be on a remote environment or, in person in the office. So just thinking about how you can, maybe it's create a menu, a script, a way that you can check yourself, but also hold other people accountable in a friendly, human-centered way to say, who are we missing? What other ideas could we gather? Are we inviting early careerists to think about this? What is their feedback? What about, our baby boomers that are still in the workforce? How can they contribute to adopting technology in a way that's more universally applied to the entire team and can enhance operations or efficiencies for us? So really being strategic about thinking, who can you include, who's not included, and how can we come to someone's rescue when they might need a little help?
Great. So now with the ongoing changes, we sort of talked about this a little bit, but how do you think the evolving landscape is going to impact women overall in the industry?
I think it really does depend on what sector we're talking about. There are some industries that were already underrepresented when it comes to women, in law, in finance, in cyber, in STEM. There are some positions in occupations that were already underrepresented in those areas. And so if they are faced with even stricter and lack of flexible ways of working, that can certainly inhibit women from wanting to be a part of that work culture by virtue of potentially other obligations that are important and prioritized in their lives outside of work, such as parenting, maybe caregiving, and those sorts of roles that women traditionally have had to take the brunt of. And so, considering, let's say there's a return to work, a return to office rather, mandate, where now someone who traditionally could have participated in remote or hybrid work has to come in to an office with commuting every single day, or at least more so than they did during the pandemic. What other kinds of flexibilities could you offer or discuss with them to create a way that they can make their lives more manageable so that when they are at work, they're able to bring their most productive, engaged selves to the work itself without having the mind share of having to think about how am I going to pick up my kids? Am I going to be able to financially afford before and after care now on top of regular daycare and commuting costs? Those sorts of things. So just being really strategic and also bringing in the workforce to these kinds of conversations to say, what kind of work arrangement would work for you? And that doesn't just affect women, it affects all of us.
So now here's a question I just was thinking while you were saying that. Someone's working in government, they get let go. What's the easiest way for you to suggest and some of the tips that you would give women to transition from working in government to working in industry? Because it is a transition and a mindset change to work from one to the other. What are some tips that you would have to give people?
I think first and foremost, I would say to take a pause and an inventory in terms of what you're hoping to get from your next job experience. And I don't mean to sit on your laurels for too long, but after the dust settles, you may need a moment to grieve the loss of, let's say, a job in social impact or your entire life serving
Right.
America, like I did for decades. That could take your breath away a bit in terms of your identity and how you felt that calling to serve. Then taking inventory in terms of priorities. What are your needs and what are your wants? Does, predictable income go at the top of the list? Does a certain salary amount or maybe flexibility? And again, that alignment to maybe a values-based kind of job opportunity. Because from there, you can really start structuring a more targeted job search rather than haphazardly just to try to find a match to your technical skills. And I think that's where there could be some really interesting opportunities that maybe you hadn't considered before. The next piece of advice I would say is to look for employers that match those priorities and ideals and values. So, for instance, if flexible work is important to you, or you need a job that offers more remote and hybrid opportunities, targeting employers that have a good value proposition, have, let's say, great Glassdoor reviews, and that are legitimately structured to offer remote or flexible kinds of opportunities could be a great way to target your job search first if that's high on the list. And then last but not least, work your network and make it easy for those in your network to help you. So that might look like when you find some job opportunities that you're interested in applying to, then going into your LinkedIn network or across your network if you're networking in person to say, does anyone know anyone who works at XYZ organization? I'm considering applying for this job, or I have applied for this job. Here's the link to the position I applied to. Here's a link to my resume. Would you make an introduction for me? I'd love to see if I could get a connection just to find out more information. Those kinds of connections go a long way to put you at the forefront in a very highly competitive job market.
That is amazing. Micah, is there anything else? Mika, I'm sorry, I said your name wrong. Mika, is there anything else you would like to add?
I think, when people are faced with changes in their lives and their careers that weren't driven from their own choice, um, there's a lot of grief that can come from that too. And it's almost like being in a toxic relationship or an abusive relationship as well to some point, especially when there could be uncertainty around it, the push, the pull. Some people are getting fired as probationary employees or agencies are being restructured and then being rehired. That is a lot to deal with. So I would say invest in ways where you can feel okay in the chaos, and try to stay grounded around the things that you can control, small, tiny bites. They say, eat the elephant one bite at a time. If you are looking for a new opportunity, and even if you aren't, it's always wise to plan for the worst and hope for the best. That way you're in the driver's seat as much as possible. And again, lean on your community and network for support as you're going through this, whether it's to process feelings or just for togetherness. Sometimes even just a networking reception or a dinner with friends or even a FaceTime call could go a long way to boosting your spirits and making you feel like you're not alone in all of that.
Well, Mika, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. This has been great.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you for listening. Please be sure to check out our other podcasts, Keeping IT Brief, available on your podcast providers.